Here I'm going to demo the use of closure. To demo that, I have created a simple JavaScript program, and this particular function get executed on click on this particular button. Okay, and when user click on this particular button, and it will increment this particular counter variable and print this particular counter variable in this particular span tag. Okay, I'm just running this particular program. So if I click on this button, okay, here we are getting this particular count, right? I'm going back to the code. Things are working fine, right? So here we have a counter variable, and this particular counter variable get incremented inside this particular function. Okay, so this particular function get called from this particular button. Now I am creating another button. Okay, so here I'm creating another function. Function do task. Okay, so here I am calling this particular function. This particular function need to some logic. I mean, this particular function want to do some computation. So by mistake, this particular function can modify counter equal to counter -1. Okay, so this can happen knowingly or unknowingly. Okay, so the problem here is that if you create a variable, it's a global variable, and this particular global variable can be accessed in any function. So how do we create, or how do we isolate this particular variable only for this particular function? Okay, I hope you got the problem. How do we prevent accessing this particular variable from this particular function? Okay, so in order to isolate this particular variable, what we can do, we can create a function. We can use the concept of closure, right? Here we can use a function. A closure is function inside a function, right? So this particular logic can be put inside function. So here I am copying this particular thing to this particular function. Okay, now so this particular function, and here we are return this particular increment function. Okay, it can be done like this, or we can simply, okay, here we can provide the return. Okay, so I am creating a variable something like var increment equal to a function. This function returns this particular function. So here what we can do, instead of doing like this, I am simply returning. Here I am creating a function. This particular function returns. So here this particular function returns another function, right? Okay, now so this counter variable is now not accessible from here. Okay, so actually if if you do like this, what will happen? in JavaScript, if you didn't declare a variable, this become also a global variable. Okay, so here we have created a counter variable. That counter variable can be accessed only inside this particular function. Okay, so here this particular function, outer function, returns an inner function that can access this particular outer. Only functions inside this particular function can access this particular variables. So that is one of the use of closure. So here, if we try right now, this increment is a function. Increment is actually this particular function. Okay, now let's see what is the output. If I run this, okay, so click me. So the problem is that this particular counter is not getting incremented, right? Okay, the issue here is that here each and every time when we call this particular function, okay, so this particular variable get initialized to 0, and here we are displaying that. Okay, so what we can do here is that I want to execute a particular function only once. So if you want to execute a function only once, what we can do, we can do something like that. Okay, we can create a function that is called as self-executable function. This is a normal function syntax, right? Okay, so here this particular function can be executed. So here we can for so this is a self-executable function. That means logic contains whatever inside this particular thing get executed, and what this particular function returns, that will be available here. So similarly, what we can do here, I'm going to delete this. Okay, before that I will use the same concept here. Here we have a function, and this particular function has to be executed, right? So this is, we provide like this. This is a self-executable function. Okay, so here we have a self-executable function. That function has a variable, okay, and a function, okay, and this particular function return this particular function. Okay, now I'm saving this and running this. Now if I click, see, I'm getting the out, and if I try to do something, that is not impacting my counter. Okay, so this particular, if I do something, if I click on this particular do something, that is not impacting this particular variable. So we can isolate the creation of global variable by creating self-executable functions. Okay, so here we have used the concept of closure and self-executable function to prevent or to isolate variables from external use. Okay, I hope you got the concept of the need behind self-executable function and closure. Okay, thanks for watching this.